Welcome to Bible study. We're preparing this Bible study for Sunday, January 19th, 2025, and we are in the study of wisdom literature. The Proverbs is where we've begun. If you have your Bible handy, you may want to turn to Proverbs chapters 2 and 3. You'll notice I'm standing here in front of our Epiphany pyramids yet. Here are the wise men on their way following that star. They'll be changed by the time we come to church on Sunday, but I thought while they were here, I should still have those wise men in the background. Wisdom is such an interesting idea for people, and it's something that everybody says yes to, but so very few people actually practice it. In fact, that was a little bit, if we do a summary of our first chapter, that's kind of what it was talking about. It starts off by making this very conventional, broadly accepted wisdom. I mean, who could say no to it? The wisdom of the middle part of that chapter was, don't take the short-term gain. Don't do the evil thing to get money or fame or power or something like that. That's going to come back and hurt you. Every culture says this. Every wise parent who gives advice to a son or a daughter will say, don't cheat on the test. That A you get is not ever going to really be yours. That when you do the wrong things, it always comes back to hurt you. It's conventional. It is so widely accepted, and yet so often ignored. We talked about that on Sunday as we said, well, what do we do with this? And what the writer what Solomon, the writer of the Proverbs, tells us right there is that wisdom is essentially not gracious. He portrays then wisdom sort of calling in the street and summoning people and giving them the good, wise thing to do. And when they ignore her, and wisdom is always portrayed as a female, by the way, when they ignore her, she laughs at them. She does not say, oh, well, you tried hard. Or it was a good effort, or well, it was a learning experience for you. We're going to take away the consequence. No, she's going to let the consequences fall on your head. Wisdom, especially the wisdom of that shared conventional wisdom which Christianity shares with all kinds of people around the world, whether they're Christian or not, that wisdom is not gracious. It is not the wisdom of forgiveness. That will come. That will be the higher wisdom that we'll get to in a little bit, but it's not gracious. This wisdom is the wisdom of consequence. If you put your hand in a fire, it's going to get burned. The fire is never going to say, oh, well, you didn't really know what you were doing. If you go, hiking in some dangerous place without providing adequate gear and the things that you need in case an emergency arises, and that emergency arises, the storm comes or whatever, you may die. Wisdom is not going to say, oh, that doesn't count. Those consequences aren't real. No, it's going to let it happen. And so in a very real sense, this wisdom is not forgiving. It is not gracious. It does not say that I'm going to curb or thwart or somehow turn aside the consequences for what you have done. No, wisdom is going to watch you suffer and say, told you that would happen. Today, Solomon gives us three really important things about wisdom that I want to focus on with you in chapters 2 and 3. So if you have that here, you may want to turn to that. There's some very famous passages in here that many of us may know, and this is where they come from. He starts off by saying, my son, treasure this up. Treasure up my commandments that I'm making to you. Make your ears attentive. Listen to me, he says. If you call out for insight and raise your voice for understanding, if you seek it like silver and search for it like a hidden treasure, then you will understand the fear of the Lord, and you will find the knowledge of God. So here we have, look for this good thing, pursue it, and you will find the knowledge of God. The knowledge of God is attainable. You can learn this stuff. Now he's going to tell us some things that are essential to this knowledge of God. The Lord gives wisdom. This doesn't come because you got there. This comes because God gave it. From his mouth come knowledge and understanding. He stores up sound wisdom for the upright. He's a shield for those who walk with integrity, guarding the paths of justice, watching over the way of his saints. Then you will understand righteousness and justice and equity and every good path. For wisdom will come into your heart, and knowledge will be pleasant to your soul. The first thing that Solomon wants us to understand about true wisdom is that it is playing the long game. True wisdom is interested in these things which are important to God, which may or may not be to your immediate benefit. Equity, justice, what is right, righteousness. If you pursue those things, quite often, you will end up, financially or power-wise or fame-wise or something else, you will end up losing. But that equity, that justice, that righteousness, that is what is important to God. And so the first thing that the writer, that Solomon wants us to know, the writer of these Proverbs wants us to know, is that true wisdom is a God-defined wisdom. It's not a human-defined wisdom. It isn't simply based on what is accessible to me, and I can say that this is what is best for me. And that I could somehow instrumentalize or commodify another person and say that they're not as important as I am. What he's saying here is that true wisdom is really displacing me from the center of this picture. And what he's putting in the center in place of me are these concepts of equity and justice and righteousness and what is right and good. Wisdom will come into your heart then. Notice it isn't there already. For every human being, this requires a displacement of the self. God has to come and push us aside. If you want to see this written into the New Testament, read the letter to the Philippians, where Paul in prison is facing a death sentence, and he says, I rejoice because Christ is proclaimed. It's this radical displacement of himself. He is wise. Discretion will watch over you. Understanding will guard you. It will deliver you from the way of evil, from men of perverted speech, who forsake the paths of uprightness and walk in the ways of darkness, and they rejoice in doing evil. Men whose paths are crooked and whose ways are devious. But now what he wants to say is this is not only about making moral decisions in the realm of our interactions with people, and here he seems to be talking almost financially, right? But then he goes on from there and says, but this comes into the very center and the wholeness of your being. You will be delivered from, and here the translation's a little hard, the forbidden woman, the adulteress with her smooth words. He's talking about a righteousness, a pursuit of equity and what is good and right and honest and noble and true and pure. It extends to every aspect of your life. And so he wants to say this can't be compartmentalized. You cannot be wise in your dealings financially or politically or elsewhere and not be wise in your relationships with those people who are closest to you, particularly here, your wife, your spouse, your children. The second thing that he wants to say about this wisdom is that it involves humility. He's already touched on that. He's led us to that when he said that in fact, wisdom comes from God and not from in here. Chapter 3. Don't forget my teaching, he says, but let your heart keep my commandments. For length of days and years of life and peace will it add to you. Let not steadfast love and faithfulness forsake you. Bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart. And you will find favor and good success in the sight of God and man. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. Here is one of the most quoted verses out of the book of Proverbs. You might commit that one to memory. Chapter 3, verse 5. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. Be not wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord, turn away from evil. It will be healing to your flesh and refreshment to your bones. The second thing he really wants us to see here is that, in fact, I am student and God is teacher. And that this involves, that real wisdom involves a trust of God. Because it won't always be obvious and clear. There will be many times when to be wise will require me to turn my ear toward what God says, listen to it, and to trust that he speaks the truth. Because I may not be able to see it. Life is so often gray. It is so often ambivalent about what is the right or the wrong path to take. If I simply base that on what is good for me, I am going to find myself walking down some bitter and bad places. But if I listen to God, my barns will be filled with plenty, and my vats will burst forth with wine. So don't despise the Lord's discipline or be weary of his reproof. Sometimes God is going to have to help you see something, and it's not going to be easy. This humility means God is God, I am not, and he gets to tell me how some things are. And when I rebel against that, and God kind of pulls me back, and sometimes pulls me back through the things of this world that are not pleasant, the Lord reproves the one whom he loves, as a father the son in whom he delights. Do not take that reproof as anything other than God loving you. We're back to trust. You have to trust in God. Lean not upon your own understanding, but trust in the Lord with all your heart. So first, we have this God-defined wisdom. Secondly, we learn it is about trust. Written into this, of course, is this idea that this is now expanding to take place in the whole of your life. The third thing, blessed is the one who finds wisdom and the one who gets understanding. For the gain from her is better than gain from silver, and her profit is better than gold. She's more precious than jewels. Nothing you desire can compare with her. Long life is in her right hand, and in her left are riches and honor. All the good things you're after are in wisdom's control. Her ways are the ways of pleasantness, and all her paths are peace. She's a tree of life to those who lay hold of her. To those who hold fast, they are called blessed. There is real benefit to being wise, as he is talking about. But then verses 19 and 20. The Lord by wisdom founded the earth. By understanding he established the heavens. By his knowledge the deep broke open, and the clouds dropped down the dew. My son, don't lose sight of these. Keep sound wisdom and discretion. When we say trust in the Lord, lean not on your own understanding, but trust in him. When we say this applies to the living of all of life, Solomon wants us to understand that how deep that goes. And that's where this third element is. That wisdom starts with the creation of all that is. That we are wholly contingent, dependent upon God for everything. For the ability to live, for life itself. For every breath we take, for everything we are dependent upon God. This means some things for us. You will walk on your way securely. Your foot will not stumble. If you lie down, you won't be afraid. When you lie down, your sleep will be sweet. Why is that? Because the solution to my problems is so much bigger than I am. My problems may be much larger than I am. Those things that make other men afraid to lie down and sleep. I could say, but the God who I trust and who loves me, because he has reproved me, remember, he's bigger than all of them. There is no created problem which is bigger than God's solution. Whether that's a lack of money, whether that's a relationship problem, whether that is war or danger or whatever, every one of those problems is smaller than my God. Don't be afraid of a sudden terror or the ruin of the wicked, for the Lord will be your confidence. He will keep your foot from being caught. Do not withhold good from those to whom it is due when it is in your power to do it. And so that means you don't need to be this grasping sort of person who takes everything to yourself, because that is your security. Your security lies in God, and that enables you, when it is appropriate, to be generous. Don't say to your neighbor, go and come again, tomorrow I will give it, when you actually have it right now. Just give it to him. Don't plan evil against your neighbor who dwells trustingly beside you. You don't have to double-cross people. Do not contend with a man for no reason when he's done you no harm. You don't have to live that way. You can live differently. Don't envy a man of violence. Don't choose any of his ways. For the devious person is an abomination to the Lord, but the upright man are in his confidence. The curse is upon the house of the wicked, but the blessing upon the dwelling of the righteous. Toward the scorners he is scornful, but to the humble he gives favor. And the wise will inherit honor, and fools will get disgrace. So 3 things. First of them, God gets to define it. Equity, justice, righteousness, that lives at the center of my wisdom. God teaches me. God leads me. I am somebody who needs my heart filled with this. God gives it. But in giving that, this is the gift of the one who is larger than all of creation. And hence that means his solutions and his blessings for me are larger than them all. This means not just something that I understand, something that I may feel, but it is something that now can govern the very ways that I live my life. The ways that I have relationships with people, the ways that I order my morality, but also just simply the way that I deal with my neighbor. I don't need to take advantage. Rather, I can trust that God is going to take care of me. And so I can be a different kind of person than that greedy, self-centered, self-contained, self-reliant person that the world valorizes today. I look forward to talking with you about this on Sunday. If you have any questions about anything, shoot me an email, talk to me. We'd love to say more. God be with you.